During the launch of the Maryam Forum, we had a session on the lessons and implications of the COVID crisis for Europe, and particularly emerging Europe. Professor Featherstone, you were the academic lead for that session. What would you say were the key differences in national governments' responses across Europe? And in particular, were there any differences between emerging Europe and Western Europe?
I think the experience of the pandemic has shown one or two surprising outcomes. So some governmental systems in Europe with reputations for low quality institutions have done rather well. Greece is a prime example. Other systems with reputations for high quality institutions have done less well. Sweden, for example. Central and Eastern Europe, on the whole, was relatively well prepared. It has to be said that the pandemic came later to Central and Eastern Europe. So we are seeing divergences, but there's a kind of surprising aspect to the differences. And certainly there are problems in terms of governmental response, but not necessarily as one would have predicted.
Right. So you mentioned problems in terms of government response. What do you think is the key lesson from this pandemic for emerging Europe particularly, but European governments at large?
I think it's much too early to think of a key lesson in the sense of a prime singular outcome. We're still learning about the differences. I think tentative lessons are probably in terms of placing the science center stage. That has the benefit of the public giving a trust, giving a credibility to the advice and the instructions that they're being given. I think there's also another lesson in terms of resource planning ahead of crises. We need to think in the longer term for crises which may recur.
You've touched upon the inconsistencies in national governments' responses and the lack of coordination. So what do you think should be the top priority for the EU in their continued response to the pandemic?
It is a crossroads for the European Union. It is raising questions about the very purpose of the European Union. What is the European Union for? But of course, it's exposing differences of economic view. We have the so-called frugal four governments, which are much more resistant to major transfers of funding.
And so from there, do you think the EU will be given a greater role in managing future pandemics?
I think the EU will do more in the economic domain, creating some significant fund with or without conditionality, etc. But in the health service domain, I think it's much more difficult for the European Union to intervene given the mosaic of different health systems.
Well, thank you very much for your time and thank you for your responses.
Thank you.
Join the Maryam Forum.
Join the Maryam Forum.
Join the Maryam Forum.
Join the Maryam Forum.
Join the Maryam Forum.